A special thanks to my Patreon supporters. What was the creepiest/scariest thing that ever happened while you were alone? I spoke to the ghost of my great-grandmother on the telephone. I didn't recognize her voice because she had died over 60 years before I was born, but a very elderly-sounding lady called and calmly told me to tell Essie it is time to come home now. I kept telling her she had the wrong number, but she was adamant that I pass along the message. 2 hours later, my grandmother's assisted living home called and told us that my grandmother, Esther, had passed away in her sleep. Her mother had died when she was 16, and Essie was my grandmother's childhood nickname. This was 25 years ago, and thinking about it still makes the hair on my neck stand on end. This didn't happen to me, but my sister. She was home alone and I was out at the mall with a friend. I called her to ask what t-shirt she wanted from the store I was at, and she told me she was scared that there was ghost in the house. I asked what happened. She had put a hot pocket in the microwave and gone into her room to change. While she was changing, she heard the microwave go off, signaling that her hot pocket was done. We have a small house, the kitchen and living room are open and connected, and her room opens to the living room. She comes out of her room to grab the hot pocket, but instead of it being in the microwave, it was out on the living room coffee table, all warmed up. If that happened to me while I was alone, I would have been out of there so fast. I was camping with friends. It was early in the season and we were the only ones in that section of the park. One morning I stayed in my sleeping bag in the tent while everyone else went to the facilities, which were a bit of a walk away. I dozed off again. I was awoken by someone grabbing my foot through the tent. I was groggy and assumed it was a friend playing a joke and kicked and said fuck off. My foot was grabbed again and pulled, and I kicked again pretty hard, not afraid to kick my friend who was now pissing me off. He stopped and I dozed off again. I woke up again probably less than half an hour later and heard my friends in the distance, returning. When they got back, I asked them who was the one trying to wake me up. They had no idea what I was talking about, honestly. I told them about something grabbing my foot through the tent and they thought I was trying to tell a story to scare them. I still have no idea what it was. It wasn't even dark out at the time. My cousin and I went to Dallas together, but he had to stay an extra day for work, so I came back to his house on my own. He lives on top of a hill in a big old house and it was a bit creepy. I was just lounging around when I hear what sounded like some heavy footsteps running a few steps and suddenly stopping. Holy crap. I have a major freak out. Went to check the doors to make sure they were locked. Front door, locked. Side door, locked. Back door. Oh my God. Not only unlocked but slightly open. I decided to go through the house and found nothing. Closets, under beds, everywhere. I don't see anything out of the ordinary. Footsteps continued every once in a while. I was pretty sure I was going to die that night. Spoiler alert, I didn't. Holy fudge. I had bad sleep paralysis attack some years ago. One time I woke up in bed, unable to move, at like 4:30 a.m., bedroom door open to the hallway. I heard the pitter-patter of 2 little children running down the hallway towards me, laughing and squealing. I was absolutely terrified and completely unable to move. As they get closer, my anxiety and fear go through the roof, and before I know it they burst through my open door, and run up onto my chest, turn on a dime and run back out the door down the hallway. Laughing and giggling. I hear the footsteps get faint and am momentarily relieved, but then I hear them running back down the hallway towards me. My anxiety goes through the roof again as I brace for ghost children to race up over me a second time. Fucking terrifying. Their little race, their game, was repeated 1 or 2 more times before I was able to snap myself out of it and come to. I was panting, gasping for breath, petrified, bewildered and discombobulated early in the morning. This was truly one of the most unnerving things I've ever experienced. I don't believe in ghosts or the afterlife, but that experience absolutely scared the bejesus out of me. Weirdly, I actually didn't see the kids, just heard them and felt them, and was unable to turn my head to see them coming down the hall at me. I lived in a 100-plus-year-old apartment building in an old East Coast city at the time. It was on the third-floor apartment of a former stately Victorian townhouse in the middle of town. The third floor in these old houses was reserved for the children of the house. The house was built just before the Spanish flu of the last century. I want to believe. When I was around 11 or so, my siblings and I were all playing hide and seek in my house. Now I know under the bed is the first place you always look, but for whatever reason I decided to hide under my little sister's bed in her dark room. So I get down on the floor and squeeze under and wait for the seeker to come looking for me, and as I am laying there waiting, I hear a little girl giggle next to me. I could clearly see I was the only one under the bed, and I was the only one in the room, and I shot out from under the bed and told everyone what happened, and that was the end of the game. 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning, I was in bed petting my very bossy cat, who had pushed my bedroom open a few minutes prior, when I saw my dad. The entry to the kitchen is just that, an entrance, there is no door. I saw him in his oversized black shorts and miscellaneous old t-shirt cross the kitchen entryway. First I thought, why the fuck he is not at work, then I realized that he wasn't wearing his glasses, which led me to think he must be sick. So I get up despite my dickhead cat's nasty face and walk into the kitchen to ask him if he is feeling okay. No one was there. No one was home, all the doors were still locked. I wasn't afraid, but turning that corner and expecting to see a person and seeing nothing but a bright empty room was very creepy. When I was younger, about 7, I was home alone and I heard the door open. My parents had gone out to celebrate a birthday with a few friends and I wasn't allowed to go. My older sisters were at a sleepover. I assumed it was my parents getting home and I ran to the door, but nobody was in the house after a thorough search. I then heard the back door to the house open and a man yell, "Hurry, get the hell out." I really didn't understand what was going on at the moment, so I just closed the doors and locked them. After my parents got home, my mom and dad accused me of taking their money they had stashed away and asking me what I did with a few different things. After I told them what happened, they didn't believe me until they saw that the hallway downstairs leading to our back door had muddy boot prints. They called the cops and freaked out. I live in a small house next to my father's home, which is in the middle of the woods, Norway. Even though I am 18 years old, it can be quite scary being completely alone sometimes, especially after dark. This incident happened some time ago, about 1 year or so. It was well over midnight and I was just about to go to sleep, eyelids closed. I had been lying in bed for a while. Unfortunately, there was no sleep to come, because I suddenly heard an ominous scream outside. It was extremely loud, and almost sounded like it was directly over my house. It was indescribably scary. The scream was something straight out of a horror movie, like a blend between an animal and a human in pain. The freakiest part was that I could hear the sound moving through the air above me, from one point to another. Believe me, it was fast as lightning, and gone before I knew it. The suddenness scared me shitless. It was so unexpected. I stayed up all night with the lights on. The day after the incident, I spoke to my father about it. It turned out that he had heard it too. He even rushed to the window to see what was going on outside. None of us have a clue of what the hell that scream was about. But there was some kind of relief knowing that I wasn't the only one experiencing it. We even joked about it being a witch flying through the air. But all jokes and speculations aside, I hope I never hear something like that ever again. I still have trouble sleeping sometimes. Don't know if this thread still upvotes/gets read or whatever, but I'll post my story. I was 18 at the time and I recently got a new job working in an old Freemason bar. It was like my 20th shift and my manger had to leave early and he left me with the keys to lock up. I locked all the doors and went around turning off all the lights upstairs and went back to the bar to cash up. While I'm cashing up I hear a massive crash in the kitchen, so I go and investigate and nothing seemed out of order. I went back to the bar to see two gentlemen sitting at the bar. I was a little taken aback to see them, but I thought nothing of it and poured them both a drink. I then bent down to clean the glasses out of the glass cleaning machine, and when I come back up the gentlemen had disappeared, but their beers remained untouched in their glasses. I think not much of it, just assumed they left. The two things that really got to me were when I went to leave, the front door was locked from where I locked it earlier in the night, as well as all the other doors, and when I told my manger he explained how the last person who worked on the bar claimed they were pushed down the stairs while they were alone. So in his words, the spurts here must like you. I swear this is no BS. This was my story from a similar thread months ago, but it still pertains. It was 2 a.m. and I was bored. So I went out to this park a bit out of town to go biking. It for the most part is surrounded by trees at all ends, with a running/biking track that goes around the park. The park was lined with street lights though, so you could vaguely see. I've been going there for a few times that week around this time because it unwinded me and felt good at that outside. But this time when I was making my rounds, I see 4 fucking 6-year-old looking figures come out of the forest. It was 4 to 7 of them, I don't remember. But these little things didn't have a parent with them and all, and seemingly stayed silhouetted. I was kind of biking in their general direction when they started fucking coming towards me. Thankfully I was around 200 feet away from them, but I could make out them and the spooky little shits were coming. I don't think I biked faster my entire life. I literally became Lance Armstrong with an extra testicle for a good 3 minutes, charging it home. It was unexplainable. I've been alone and haven't seen a single person all the times I went. I haven't gone since, needless to say. One time when I was about 12, my best friend at the time and I were having a sleepover at her house. As a visual, the house was pretty old and was filled with tons of antiques and old furniture. She lived at her grandmother's house. The basement was one of those ones where you wouldn't dare go down into alone because it just felt spooky. Because we were spooked by the basement, we decided it would be fun to sleep in a very long hallway on the 3rd floor, on opposite sides of the hall for some reason. LOL. The whole night before bed we were playing a game where we were spies, so we would hide in the closets and sneak up on her mom and grandma. I was often homesick at sleepovers as a kid, and when it was bedtime I just read my book by a nightlight on my end of the hall. Then, right across from me, I see my friend get up and run towards me. Innocent me says, "Are we playing spies again?" No response. So I just giggle and I'm excited to play again, so I follow the figure into a bedroom closet and close the door. I'm trying to communicate but she's not answering. I look over to where she is supposed to be beside me, but no one is there. I decide to leave the closet because I couldn't fathom what was happening. I walk across the long hall and saw that she was fast asleep this whole time. I could never sleep there again, and I'm still really spooked by the fact I ran into a closet with a mysterious figure. Between my old house and a couple other random instances, I have a lot of little stories. I've been commenting with them here or there. I was chased up the stairs once when I was 11, but when I turned around there was no one there. My parents were about to take us to get ice cream one evening, and I was grabbing my jacket in my bedroom, and I just got inexplicably scared. I booked it up the stairs, heard the pounding footsteps right behind me, and when I spun around I felt this whoosh like air pass through me. I shit you not. I almost wish I was kidding. I never tell this story because it's the least believable of my experiences, but I remember it clear as day. I even remember that my vision changed for a split second when I turned around, kind of like dunking your face in water with your eyes open. Not that I would tell many people this without anonymity, but I have to say I think a ghost passed through me. TLDR ghost. Stairs. Chase. Whoosh. Edit. I feel like I should add that I'm pretty good at debunking things. We had so many weird instances in that house that I paid attention to things like the sound of the house settling, drafts, how my footsteps sounded when I ran up the stairs, etc. Odd things happened with electronics, but as creepy as it is to have your TV turn on to static at 3 a.m., that's not paranormal, that's electric. So not every strange sound or sight is something I count as supernatural, but when I add together all of the genuinely supernatural, it doesn't seem as crazy to think I got chased. About 11:45 p.m. in my home, I left my bedroom to get a glass of water from the kitchen, which is located in the back room of the house. I was slowly walking down the hallway trying to be quiet as everyone else was asleep, plus with all the lights out you tend to tread more carefully. As I reached the hall door to the back room, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye in the laundry doorway. I slowly turned and looked directly at the doorway where a shadow figure of a man about 6'4" was standing perfectly still looking straight at me. I froze for a second and tried moving slightly to make sure it wasn't my shadow. I'm only 6 foot, and the figure did not move an inch. Despite the initial shock, I did not feel threatened and continued to the kitchen to get the glass of water. As I returned to the same spot, there was no figure regardless of how hard I tried to recreate it with my positioning. This isn't the only thing that has happened in my home, but I felt it was the most undeniable case of something else living at my house. Worked at a hotel that was a restored factory. 6 floors and 2 sub-levels. I had to get all my products from the lowest sub-level every day. Once I saw a shadow person move back into the dark part of the basement, heard whistling another time, and on different days would feel an oppressive feeling that would spur me to GTFO ASAP. I'm pretty good at debunking things. The shadow person I saw I assumed was my shadow, so I retraced my movements and there was no shadow coming from me. The whistle I heard had a cadence to it, but I initially thought maybe it was piping, so I did a walkabout through the whole basement. It stopped when I got to one end and started back up when I got back to my product area. Could not figure out what was causing the whistling. There were a few deaths on record. One man fell 6 stories down the elevator shaft and another was crushed between a truck and the building in the loading dock. Fun place to work, but it could get creepy.